Okay, so helping you get the idea of how you might want to value shade some different patterns, let's first talk about what you need. In your packet of stuff, you could either use our regular pencils, or to get a little bit darker, you can use one of our value pencils that's in a Ziploc bag in your goodies. 4B and or one that says 6B are dark shading pencils, okay? 6 is darker than 4, but you can work with your regular pencil that you've got if you want to. I did my beginning shading here on this particular pattern in a regular H pencil, the regular pencils that we have. I'm going to start working with the 4B pencil right now. Anytime you have an object that's kind of rounded, you can make it feel even more rounded by how you shade it. Notice how this kind of goes from super dark, and I let go of my hand pressure and I barely put anything down, and then I go back to the other side and it's nice and dark, okay? You can do that throughout, okay? So I would come here and I'd push down really hard, and then I would barely put anything on at all, and I'd get over to the other side and I would push hard and I would fade it out, okay? Areas inside would be dark as well. I would kind of work some of these areas, give a little bit of shade to them, really dark, and then it would get lighter as it goes out, right? Things like lines that are double wide. These are just two lines that are right next to each other, right? But I can make them feel like they're cylinders. See how this feels like it's a tube, right? And to make that happen, I shaded along one side that I'm gonna say is my dark side. I press down hard, and then I barely put any pressure anywhere else. So it feels really dark, and then it fades to nothing, okay? Another pattern that kind of works is if you have things that look like they're kind of behind each other, or things are stacked on top of each other. Anytime one object overlaps another object is an opportunity for you to put a shadow where they touch each other, all right? So you can see I've kind of started doing some of that here. Wherever there was an overlap, this overlaps this, I'm giving just a little bit of shading where it overlaps other objects. It overlaps here, overlaps here, overlaps here, okay? So you start to feel that the brighter areas are on top and the darker areas are on the sides, okay? That's another way to play. Here again, I have some tubular items, right? They feel kind of tube-esque, or they can. So I'm gonna take some value, kind of like what I did with the cylinders earlier. I'm gonna put a really dark value here, but I'm gonna fade it out and then go to dark again on the other side. So this is light in the middle, and it's kind of darker on both sides. Darker, lighter to darker, darker, light to dark. See how that's happening? Dark, light, and I get over to this wall, it's a little bit dark again, a little bit dark. I can be a little light up there, dark on this side. So I'm starting to get this feeling that there's some dimension to it, right? Okay. I could do the same thing on these ribbons that kind of go in between them, that the ribbons get darker here, they get lighter, and then they go back to getting darker again. Look at that. So now this feels like it's really curving, right? So again, changing from dark to light to dark again makes something feel like it's rounded. All right. I have another overlapping pattern. This one here, you can see I already kind of started. It almost looks like weaving, right? So like where this overlapped this, there was a shadow, all right? Where this overlaps this, there's a shadow. Where this overlaps this, shadow. This overlaps this, shadow. And again, the shadows start dark, but they fade out really, really fast. So I could continue that here, okay? Even when something doesn't feel like it has dimension, you can give dimension to it. Look at this pattern. It's a big square. I divided it diagonally. I divided it again. It's got lines. It's got very simple lines. I wanted to kind of like, well, where could I put some pattern with value? So I thought, well, I can make this kind of look like it's on, this half is over the top of this half, like it's a pocket or something. So I looked at it and I thought, fine, I'll follow the line here and then I'll fade it out, okay? So I'm starting to give that dimension that this is hovering over the top of that. Same thing on these crazy lines here. The lines get more concentrated and darker as they come to a single point. So if you have lines that radiate out from any point where the lines converge, make a great location to have a shadow, and then again, you fade it out really, really light-handed. Again, with all of this, I'm not really pushing very hard on the pencil. I'm pulling up really lightly the whole time. So these are just some possible suggestions of ways that we could, if this is over the top of this, I could kind of overlap it again with a shadow, right? Where these are kind of hovering over here. This could be hovering over there. And we start to get some dimension. This stuff's in the foreground, this stuff's behind. All right, so those are just some simple, helpful how-tos to look at some crazy patterns that you have and think about where can I put some value changes. Every single one of them doesn't have to have a value change, not by a long shot. But I want you, pardon me, to try in at least 2 or 3 areas of some random patterns that you have and think about where and how you might like show a shadow underneath an object, all right? Or how you might shade from dark to light on something to make it feel more rounded or have some dimension to it, okay? If you need me to look at your pattern and kind of give you some suggestions, you can always take a picture, a nice close-up of your pattern and say, what can I do with this pattern? And I can maybe doodle something and give you an idea back, okay? So we want to have at least 2 or 3 areas or more, up to you, that have some sense of some value of some light and darks or shadows to make some of your patterns feel 3-dimensional.